As you all can sense, this gospel story, like all good food stories, is set in the Middle East. And this food story is not exactly a formal prepared meal. The crowd is huge, and everybody is hungry. And they are hungry for physical food in this deserted place, but they're also hungry for still more. They are hungry to be acknowledged, to feel counted, to be recognized. And like those of us who are gathered here, they're also hungry for what Jesus has to say about God. And they are hungry to know that while the rest of the world considers them insignificant, God is on their side. And while there appears to be no food around, how can their physical hungers be met? How can their spiritual and human hungers be noticed? And their hunger to know God be filled? In this Roman-occupied world, they are slaves. And in their religious world, a long way from the center of Jerusalem and from the religious elite, these folks were considered just a smidge above pagans, ignorant and a long way from God. So, as things pick up in this story, we have some food. And despite what we first hear, it is not an insignificant gift. It's given by a boy, and it's all he has. And on top of that, we have the right occasion here too. John the Evangelist notes to us that it is the Passover time. And even the poorest Jewish person would have known exactly what that meant. Because Passover recalls God's caring for the Israelites while they were slaves. It marked the beginning of this long, hard journey out of slavery in Egypt through another wilderness and into the land of plenty. What the Jewish people learned then, and what Jesus shows here at another Passover, is that God is our traveling companion through any hard period of our lives. And God knows that right now we are in another wilderness, folks. And once again, though, God is with us, step by arduous step, not just observing, not judging, but feeding us day by day. The Israelites learned to trust that the bread would be there the next day. It's what we call daily bread. God is reassuring us that we are cared for, that all of our hungers matter. The simple offering of that little boy was multiplied so much so that everybody had their fill. And on top of that, there are a lot of leftovers. But there's one more miracle to this story. The people's hearts were changed. It wasn't a grab, eat, and run miracle. It wasn't a McDonald's drive-through quick bite miracle. There was a lot of food. And it was in the Middle East. Did you ever have a meal with a family from the Mediterranean or from the Middle East? If you're in a hurry, this is not the kind of meal that you want. You have to allow time for the family to talk, for the mention of names of friends, the weather, playing with children, multiple toasts, and good wishes. And oh yeah, there's a lot of talk about food. Who cooked it, How does it compare with other family recipes? Each course evokes more and more conversation, and there are a lot of courses. Middle Easterners, they know all about meals. They know how to share food with one another. So Jesus has this plan. He instructs his disciples, have the people recline. He has way over 5,000 people. He has them all relax. Imagine them with more than enough to eat, eating in peaceful leisure. They are no longer desperate peasants, but they are honored guests at a banquet. Jesus knew exactly what he wanted to do: build a community from a group of strangers, using food to gather them, to have friends and strangers and even enemies enjoy a meal together. The Apostle John wrote this story more than 60 years after it actually happened. So his community would have been breaking bread and drinking from the cup for a long time. They would have anticipated the story of Jesus taking a little bread and giving thanks to God. They would have seen the meaning of Eucharist in this story. And as a result, they would also have to examine their consciences about being grateful for even a little, and not always thinking about how much more they wanted. That crowd would have noticed that Jesus made sure that all of the hungry were fed. St. John describes that miracle in what I call Eucharistic terms. Jesus takes the loaves, he gives thanks, and distributes them to friends, strangers, and enemies, just like we do every single Sunday morning. John was reminding his community and us, remember who God is. A nourishing, strengthening, traveling companion who uses bread to draw people together to form a caring community, who in turn goes out and feeds the hungry and the needy.